morning as we think about Black History Month, Black Church History Month. I've renamed it. I want to think. I think one of those heroes. And I first heard about Sadhu Sunda Singh probably about 20 years ago. He lived. He was born in the Victorian era, so late 1880s, and he died in the late 1920s. So he didn't live for very long, but he was an incredible character. He was born into a Sikh family in the Punjab, and was sent to an American Presbyterian school to be educated. He was a really intelligent boy from a very wealthy family, and so his mum, he was the youngest, and his mum decided that he should be a sadhu, a holy man, and he was obviously a bright guy, so she paid for him to go and sit at the feet of the other sadhus, both Hindu and Sikh. When he was 13 or 14, his mum died quite suddenly, and she was the most influential person in his life. And despite the fact that he was educated by the Christians, he was, as I've already said, very anti-Christian. In fact, he took a Bible and he tore page out by page and burnt it. And he decided after a little while that was it. Life had no meaning. He was going to take his own life. He was going to throw himself in front of the train. He has the incredible vision of Jesus at about 4:30 that same morning, and Jesus speaks to him. I am Christ whom you are persecuting. There is salvation only through me. If you believe me now, you will be saved. If you don't believe me, you will be damned forever. He gave his life to Jesus, but the pressure on him to then conform to the look of Christianity was massive, and the look of Christianity in India in the early 1900s was Western, and so he did end up going to the seminary to train to be a vicar, and they baptised him when he was 16, when he was old enough to be baptised in his own name. His mum was dead, his father had rejected him because of his Christian faith. But then the bishop told him he'd have to be placed in a diocese, have to be placed in a church. He couldn't travel around India telling people about Jesus, and he had to wear a Western suit. And Sadhu Sundar Singh was like, "Get lost, mate, I'm not dressing like you lot." And he took to the roads, barefoot, in saffron robes, saffron turban, and for the next 20 years he walked northern India into Tibet, into what would now be Pakistan. He walked all over the place, having incredible encounters with Jesus, and he got into places that no white Western missionary would ever be welcomed into. He had an incredible healing ministry, so a lot of people healed. He tells a story of being in the mountains one night. All he has, the only things he has, is a Bible and a shawl to keep warm at night, and the clothes that he's wearing, because he's read the New Testament. You see, he's trying to be Jesus, and tells a story about finding this little hut in the foothills of the Himalayas, and he kind of gets in there, and he's warmed throughout the night, and he stays warm, and it's brilliant. And when he wakes up, he's actually got this huge king cobra all over him. He jumps up and he flees, leaving his blanket behind, fearing for his life. And then the Lord speaks to him and says, "I provided that cobra to keep you warm. Go back and get your blanket," which he did. One of the things that Sadhu in his younger life was seeking was shanti, this idea of true peace in Sanskrit. The Hebrew calls that shalom, doesn't it? And he would meet with these gurus and these sadhus, and he would talk to them, and all of them would say, "Yeah, we're all trying to find this incredible shanti, this incredible peace." But none of them found it, and when he started to be a follower of Jesus, he realised that not only did he have salvation, but he also had shanti, he had shalom, he had peace. And that is the greatest thing we can offer right now, isn't it, as Christians, that we're in a place of turmoil, and yet we can have peace. You might not look like the vicar, you might look more like Sadhu Sundar Singh. Great. Speak the words of peace over people. after his incredible encounter with the living Jesus, very, very Paul, Saul like that, wasn't it? After that encounter, he woke his father, and there'd been a bit of a prophecy on his life from a Hindu holy man who said he would either be a great man or he would lose his mind. And he woke his father, it's kind of 6 o'clock in the morning, and say, I've encountered the living Christ. And his father said to him, "Oh, go back to bed." You're crazy. And his relationship with his dad deteriorated from that point. And after he was baptized, he was preparing to leave home and go on his first, if you like, missionary journey to go and speak to the people. And he was on a train, and he suddenly became very sick, and his dad had poisoned him. And he managed to get to a hospital, and the doctor said, "There's not much hope for you." And Sadhu, Sunda Singh led the doctor to Mark 16 and said that there's always hope of resurrection. And he woke the next day feeling absolutely fine, being well, and then met that doctor many years later when he'd become a follower of Jesus, because he'd seen this young man resurrected. Incredible stuff. We don't know much about his death. He hadn't been very well, and he went back out on the road, the barefooted Sadhu in his orange robes, to speak to more of his people about his Saviour. And that's the last we know of him. Died probably somewhere in the Hindu foothills, in the Himalayan foothills, I should say. The challenge to us is not to look like somebody else. The challenge to us is not to think that you have to be somebody else, but that you, whether you're black or white, whether you're a natural born Scouser or you're an interloper like myself, the challenge is to be the person God's made you, because you can go places that I can't go, and I can go places you can't go, and between us we can speak of the good news of Jesus.